I think that there are some parts of the public that are very dialed in to criminal justice policy. For the most part, leaders in the African American community, leaders in the Latino community are very dialed into what the criminal justice policy is. We know that underrepresented communities are, whether it's the victims of crimes, whether it's the defendants themselves, we know that there is a lot of black and brown people in our justice system for reasons of structural racism, for reasons of economic racism. And so many leaders are very dialed into what is going on in the courthouse. Then there are other people who have no idea who the state's attorney is. There are people who have no idea who the judge is except for the judge they see who does their speeding ticket. I think people are uncomfortable thinking that they have a power to change the criminal justice system. People are frightened by their own power sometimes. I think people want their justice system to be operating like a clock, that it's just running and that they don't have to think about it.
The public trusts the police and prosecutors because they have to. It is part of what holds society together is law enforcement and the prosecution of evildoers.
A family in Waukegan struggles to make sense of it. The killing of an 11-year-old girl stabbed to death while babysitting. Holly Staker was watching over 2 young children in her neighborhood last night. Police say she was upstairs in this 2-flat brick apartment building when someone broke down the door and attacked her with a knife. Channel 2's Jay Levine is in Waukegan to tell us more. Jay?
Bill, police tell me at this hour that they have several possible leads, several possible suspects, but at this point, nothing firm. Experts are right now interviewing the 2- and 5-year-old children that Holly Staker was babysitting for when she was first assaulted and then murdered, hoping they'll remember something, anything, that will help lead them to the killer of the young babysitter.
Last night we slept with one eye open, and it was, probably do the same thing again tonight. You just don't know that what's out there.
It could have happened anywhere. I'm just afraid it might happen to somebody else. I've been real nervous. I've been, I haven't been sleeping well. I've been getting to bed a lot later because I'm trying to just, listen for any noises.
The people in the neighborhood are very frightened and are very anxious for this person to be caught and put behind bars.
Holly Staker lived here on North Avenue. And on the afternoon of August 17th, she walked, we believe, over to Franklin on her way to her babysitting job and took a left on Hickory and got to 442 Hickory sometime between 4 and 5 o'clock.
The building where Holly babysat was a building with an apartment on the first floor and an apartment on the second floor. She was on the second floor. She was babysitting for 2 children. One was 2, Taylor, Arena, and a 5-year-old boy named Blake, Arena. The mother, Dawn Engelbrecht, had gone to work at a bar around the corner called John's Cheers. And Holly and her twin sister Heather had babysat for Dawn before.
At some point, she and Taylor Arena left and went to the grocery store in the neighborhood, known as Cribs, and bought a pizza. And they came back, and we believe went down Hickory back to 442.
At some point, Blake, the 5-year-old boy, was playing outside and tried to come back in and was locked out. A neighbor, I believe, went and alerted Dawn or called Dawn, and Dawn got in touch with Holly's mother, and the 2 of them went back to the apartment. And when they got up there, they saw that the place was ransacked, there was blood, and they called the police. The police discovered Holly's body behind the bed in one of the bedrooms.
This was an absolutely egregious crime. And when a crime is so egregious, there's tremendous pressure on law enforcement to get a conviction. And that's what I think happened in this case.
At the time that Holly Staker was killed, there was a newly formed Lake County Major Crimes Task Force. And what it was an assembled sort of consortium of law enforcement agencies up in Lake County that would investigate serious crimes that one law enforcement agency might not be able to. And so they put together this task force that had various officers from various different municipal police departments assigned so that they could investigate crimes like murder and other serious offenses.
Waukegan in particular was a town where the demographics had really been changing. You know, Lake County was one of these sort of former industrial hubs around Chicago that had sort of had their heyday in, you know, the 40s and 50s and 60s. They were factory towns. Joliet's another one, Elgin, Aurora, Waukegan. And once those factories shut down, the towns went through some economic downturns, and as of 1992, over the last 2 decades, there had been a very large influx of Hispanic population in those towns. I think, you know, largely 30, 40% by that time. And so even while the sort of demographics of the town were changing, the power structure remained white and Republican. So that sort of created an interesting dynamic as this case moved forward.
While the Staker family mourns, a task force of police officers is tracking down leads in the search for Holly's killer.
Yeah, the Lake County Major Crimes Task Force had been newly formed in 1992, and it was my understanding that this was their first case. And there was a lot of money going to fund their work, and there were a lot of people on this team. And this was a big case.
Police have stepped up patrols tonight in the central Waukegan neighborhood, but the home invasion murder of 11-year-old Holly Staker has everyone here spooked.
You are afraid until they catch someone. You know, you don't know if he's You don't really know where he's at, you know. He can be anywhere.
This is the family of Holly Staker, mother Nancy, twin sister Heather, stepfather Michael, and little sister Carrie. You can see the pain in her mother's eyes, the fear in her sister's face. Another night, Holly Staker's killer is free.
It's real frustrating because the man that did it still is out there, and so it's real scary for all of us, and especially Heather, to know that the man that's out there who stalked his, her sister, and he's still out there.
It's important to remember that, like, this crime, this was an 11-year-old girl, incredibly photogenic, beautiful girl. It freaked people out. Like, they were scared. Not only because of her age, but it was an incredibly vicious crime. She was raped and stabbed 27 times. Like, just an incredibly horrific, parents' worst nightmare kind of crime. So, the police had done roadblocks, they'd set up neighborhood crime groups, there was reward. But there was a lot of pressure on the police to solve this case.
We were figuring that the person who did this crime had to have had some kind of violent history, because you don't kill a child. I mean, that Holly, she was eviscerated.
While the police search, the community is shaken to its core, knowing Holly's attacker is still out there somewhere.
We're all working just as hard as we can. Everybody's putting in 24 and 36-hour days, trying to do whatever we can. Someplace along the line, we're going to get lucky.